Hi, this is Teddy, and you're listening to Mariah Parker on Two Broads Talking Politics, part of the Demcast Podcast Network.
Are you listening?
Hey everyone, this is Kelly with Two Broads Talking Politics, and I am on as usual with my co-host Sophie. Hey Sophie.
Hey Kelly.
And we are joined today by Mariah Parker, who is the County Commissioner in District 2 of the Athens-Clarke County in Georgia. Hi Mariah.
Hey, thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us. So I think I have a lot of questions for you, but why don't we start in with just a little bit of background. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to be a county commissioner in Athens-Clarke County, Georgia.
Sure. So I moved to Athens about 6 years ago. I was looking for a change after kind of living at home with my parents, and I had some friends who lived in Athens, came to visit, started sleeping on my friend's boyfriend's couch, got a job at a diner here, and just never went back to Raleigh kind of deal. But then I later got involved in two ways in Athens. I became a graduate student at the University of Georgia, where I studied linguistics. I got my master's there. And I also got involved in the music scene here in Athens. I don't know if listeners would know that folks like REM and of Montreal and Neutral Milk Hotel are famously from here. And so we have a very robust music scene. And I hadn't really taken part in music before, but, I'd written raps my whole life. And so I became a rapper and found a lot of community around that. And it's important to the story of how I got involved in politics because it both was a political training ground for me and how I met the candidate that got me into politics. Yeah, I was organizing hip hop shows and ran into a gentleman by the name of Tommy Valentine, who's running for county commissioner at the time. And he got me thinking about the ways that community organizing in a political sense, very much like organizing the community around the arts and music, and the way those skill sets are transferable. And to my surprise, I'm just this rapper with no political experience. He asked me to work on his campaign. I eventually became field director, then campaign director, and then decided to run for office myself. So that's a little bit about how I got involved in politics here in Athens.
And what was specifically interesting to you about the commissioner position?
Well, I saw an interesting moment in the political landscape here of Athens that I felt like someone really needed to step into. For one, there were a number of candidates running on progressive platforms for things like comprehensive civil rights and anti-discrimination legislation, marijuana decriminalization, affordable housing, free public transportation, things like this. But there weren't enough of them if they were all to be elected for them to actually have the mandate behind the rail to get things done, to have that majority they would need to vote these things into reality. And so that to me was a scary part of working on a campaign I believed a lot in, but wasn't sure if it could pull off a lot of the promises we were making to the community. So I know we needed a sixth player on the team in order to accomplish that at the time. In addition, in my district where I live, there had been a gentleman who had served on the commission for about 25 years and had run uncontested largely for the majority of that time. And he had stepped down to run for mayor. And so a protege of his was running for that seat, again, running uncontested. So there's these two converging issues that I saw going on. One, democracy was not fully playing out in my district. And two, we needed this progressive slate in order to accomplish any of the things that we were raising conversation in the community about. And so while I, at the time, was still learning a lot about what a commissioner is and what a commissioner does, I had felt empowered to run for office one day for running this campaign and just uniquely saw an opportunity for me to step in and give people an option, even if I failed. So that's why I went for it. And I definitely got a crash course on county government since then.
So when you were sworn in, some of the pictures went a little bit viral. You were in Teen Vogue and some other places. In part, when you were sworn in a copy of the autobiography of Malcolm X. So talk a little bit about that and what the I know a little bit about what the national reaction was, but what was the local reaction to you sort of being your authentic self even in the swearing in ceremony?
Well, I think it's a really interesting question because at first it was hard for me to gauge what the genuine local reaction was, given the way that the internet operates and the ways that folks from all distant corners of the globe can participate in conversation, whether or not they have a dog in a fight or not. And so to separate out a lot of the trolling that I was getting from, Portland or Texas or Mississippi from the ways that people were actually thinking and feeling here in Athens was a struggle for me because it was somewhat of a deluge. But overwhelmingly, I felt that the reception was really positive. People were really, really hinging their hopes for reaction to the Trump administration and for progressive change to really have a grassroots uprising here in Athens on this election. And so to see that one of their elected politicians was starting off with a really bold stance and unwilling to compromise, in being themselves, I think drew more hope and admiration than it did vitriol, even though when in the comment section, it doesn't always quite feel that way.
So this was a special election, I think we noted, and you won by 13 votes, which is not a huge margin of victory.
No.
But obviously super impressive, and you knew that every door you knocked was important when you win by 13 votes. But you run again then in 2020. And so does that affect your thinking at all, your campaign strategy at all, knowing how razor thin the margin was last time? How do you think about running again?
Well, there's two ways to approach it, I feel like. You could be very politically calculated and trying to make the most amount of important people happy in order to safely secure your reelection. Or as with a lot of things in life, you can treat it as if you only have one chance and go for it. And I believe in really going for it in terms of really pushing hard for progressive change now rather than letting this very circuitous and labyrinthine system work its way out the way it, sometimes has to with government. I prefer pushing hard now because I think that excites people. There might be some people who are more in favor of incremental change or, in favor of the status quo and hesitant to see things change at all, but do have a lot of power to influence these things, folks that are, the most dependable voters. But at the end of the day, for me, it's not about getting reelected or not. It's about doing the right thing. And so for me, that means pushing to make sure we expand free bus access to more than just this year. We expanded it to disabled folks and senior citizens, but we're also now trying to push to get it free on election days and things like that. We're trying to work out some of the kinks and problems we've had with marijuana decriminalization now rather than, waiting for the Solicitor General to figure out how he's going to deal with this legislation we pass, going ahead and pushing for a really comprehensive anti-discrimination legislation, because right now hate crimes are illegal in Georgia, or, they're not adjudicated against as a separate crime. So there's all these things that we can wait to see what happens, or we can do something about it now. And I'm approaching my term, though I am running for election, as if it's the only one I got. I'm just giving it my all. But in terms of field strategy, I think that we built a really strong campaign last time. I was very lucky to be able to plug some extra volunteers and some extra push into the campaign I had already built around my friend who was running at the time. And so a lot of those folks are still here, and a lot more people who weren't involved then might have gotten inspired by the Malcolm X situation and now see this as their opportunity to jump in and be a part of something exciting. So we're going to get out there and knock on doors relentlessly, meet folks where they're out in the community, and we'll see what happens. As with last time, win or lose, I feel like I just have to get work done. And a lot of the work has already been done. Being elected at all has shown people that this is possible.
So I am a writer, and I've thought about running for local office, but it's kind of intimidating because I feel like a lot of the people who run for local office are either lawyers or business owners.
Exactly.
And
that's the problem.
And you're a creative person. And I got really excited when I saw, I have a creative writing degree. You also have one.
Yeah.
You're a linguistics student and you're a musician. And can you talk a little bit about sort of the things that you bring to the job from your creative background?
Yeah, totally. And I feel like I got all my political training, in the hip hop community here in Athens. I was never in debate club as a kid. I was never involved in any political societies or groups, but I learned how to debate and like hold my ground and communicate my confidence in myself, my confidence in my community, and like defend myself through rap battles. Like I was one of the only women battling around the time that the hip hop scene started to see a resurgence back about like 3 years ago. And that meant standing up against folks constantly who were coming at me about, the way I talk, the way I dress, this and that, and being able to respond gracefully and creatively and spontaneously in a moment to challenges that arise in front of you is like one of the greatest strengths of being a good leader and being a good politician. I definitely think I bring a lot of that like sense of groundedness and flexibility of thinking into the commission chambers with me every time I go there, because it's a rap battle. It's a rap battle only. These folks they think they know the rules, but I'm playing by a different set of rules, and like I come to win. So I definitely think that has influenced the way that I undertake public service. And then, being a part of the creative world, especially a world like hip hop, you're intimately connected with stories of struggle. You hear folks talking about the things that they've seen, the things they've had to do to get by, the things that are holding them back from even being successful in their art. And I think a lot of the lawyers and business folks that you're talking about forget about those stories. They forget about those people. And I feel like as a hip hop artist, experiencing a lot of that art and being a part of fostering a community which like lifts that art up through like organizing in the music scene has definitely informed what issues I think are important and are most urgent, and like help me keep a foot in that world to remember like the people who are genuinely affected by the change we are debating, implementing.
Do you find yourself rapping at all in county commissioner meetings?
I will occasionally take notes in like on my like little legal pad in like verse and meter form. Like, man, when it's my time to speak, I don't think I can rap in here. It doesn't feel right. Like the vibe is wrong. But like to process my thoughts, to prepare what I'm going to say in response to something, or like to channel some of that fury, I will definitely pen like little raps when I'm sitting in City Hall for sure.
So I have been a PhD student. It didn't take.
Oh no!
I've been around.
I wish that upon no one.
I've been around PhD students a lot. So, perhaps
man.
A lot of people, the most surprising things about you running for office are that you're young and, those sorts of things. To me, the most surprising thing is that anyone can balance PhD studies and running for office. I mean,
Yeah.
How do you balance? How is that possible?
It's a question I get a lot, and I honestly don't know how it works or if it's working. Like I'm still working through the kinks of like how to serve the public and, prep my lessons for Thursday and do all my readings for Friday and like keep my advisor off my back, like at the same time. It's something that I'm constantly learning. And I think embracing that like everything is practice and everything is teaching you like how to be better. If you frame struggle or failure as just a moment that you need to stop and reflect and show some self-compassion, like recognize your humanity and like chill a little bit. I definitely think that keeps me sane. Whether or not that keeps the quality of my PhD work up, that's, it's neither here nor there. But I definitely think that like acknowledging the constant learning of strategy that like I'm undergoing every single day, my first day in office to this day, definitely helps me stay grounded and like focused and not freak out about the amount of stuff that is coming at me constantly.
What would you say is your favorite part of being commissioner?
My favorite part of being commissioner, I mean, the connection with the people. I think that like, I just love the people of my district so much. And the fact that like, I walk down to the convenience store almost every day to buy like Gatorade or something, and inevitably am stopped by someone in the parking lot who wants to talk about, the gentrification happening in our neighborhood, the people that, like their cousin that got roughed up by the cops. And these are sad stories, it's true, but this invitation into the lives of other people that ordinarily I wouldn't get to have, in any other given circumstance. I would go buy my Gatorade and they would, get their lotto tickets and then we both part ways without getting to know each other. There's opportunity to instead like actually get to know people and engage them and help them, like even if it's something as small as getting a speed bump on somebody's street, like that changes their quality of life, the way they experience the world every day at 8 a.m. when they drive to work. And I like that feeling. And so I think it's the people and the invitation into their worlds that comes with like being the commissioner and them knowing that I'm someone that they can come to is like, has been like really life-changing.
So it makes a certain amount of sense. And as you were saying, being able to help people with sort of their individual issues, it makes a certain amount of sense that you can run on a very progressive social justice kind of platform for local office and then people can respond well to that. And then there are things you can actually implement relatively quickly, in the scheme of how government works. This is sort of reflecting beyond you and your position, but do you think that sort of thing can translate into national politics? We've got this basically internal debate in the Democratic Party right now. Are we going to sort of lean in on progressive values and try to excite people, or are we going to try to sort of tack back to the center? I mean, Sophy and I are on record as being more on the progressive side of things, but, do you think that you can reach people on a national scale the same way that you can in sort of those really local kinds of connections?
I think we have to. I think that like people are really bored with and disillusioned with rhetoric that panders to quote unquote everybody in an attempt to hide, honestly, a lot of the inequities that particular communities are experiencing. Like we can't hide that stuff anymore because those communities are fracturing. They've been fractured for a long time, but then like bubbling out of that is all of this angst and people aren't going to accept it anymore. And those people need to be talked to. Those people need to be heard. And I think that we need to start focusing on the national level on like changing the electorate. Like we can't just like talk, vanilla milkshakes all day, like trying to appeal to the people who have always voted. We need more people to get out and be voting. And those people who are being affected by income inequality, racism, all of these issues, like they want us to speak to those. And so I think running on a social justice platform can win. And I'm hoping that more people will take more of a like freewheeling like stance towards running, at least at the state level here and even local level, by like based on like what I did, like win or lose, we need to be having these conversations. And if running for office creates that conversation, let's do it. I want more people running for state house with that mentality of like, let's go in and change the conversation. Let's go in and try to change the electorate. Because I think that sort of civic engagement is as important as whether or not people end up coming out to the ballot box.
There was a picture of you, I think from maybe the day that you were sworn in or the day before, in front of a bunch of pictures of previous commissioners who were largely old white guys.
Completely and utterly old white guys. Probably mostly segregationists. Love it.
So do you, have you noticed that people in the community have sort of taken inspiration from you being in office? Are there people who are now talking about running for office who hadn't before? What does that look like that they get to see you and you're clearly not an old white guy?
Well, one really important part of what's happening, and, I tell myself that we're planting all these seeds that we might not get to see grow yet, but, like, we're planting them. And I think a part of that planning is, the connections I have to folks who are working in the service industry, who are, working class jobs, and who had never had, like, a foot in the door at City Hall or, like, an ear in City Hall that they could, like, whisper into or get updates to someone they could get updates from. Suddenly now there's like somebody that's like, when we run into each other at the bar, I'm like, yo, did you know, like on your street, this thing is going on? Like, did you know that we're voting on this thing next week? And so I think a lot of that political education that's happening, not just with me, but several other progressive candidates who ran and won last time, is seeding the bed for more folks to be like, well, actually, I'm pretty, I might work for 825 at the burger joint, but like, I actually know what's going on in city government right now and like, don't like it. And maybe that could be me up next. So I think a lot of that is happening. we do have a few progressive candidates running for office locally that I'm really excited about. I have a really progressive candidate for district attorney named Deborah Gonzalez, a prospective candidate for state house named Mocha Johnson, who's been an anti-discrimination movement leader here in Athens. And I like to hope that, through the community building we've done and the fact that I somehow snuck in there, folks are feeling inspired to give it a shot. But right now, I think mostly what's happening, the bulk of the activity is seating the bed, keeping people informed, engaged in the conversation, so that soon they'll see hey, that could be me sitting next to Mariah up there. So let's do it.
This isn't a very professional question, but I'm just really curious. I noticed on your website that you have a cat named Eggs.
I do.
Can you tell me how you named your cat Eggs? I love hearing about people's cats' names.
So he was an abandoned cat. I knew some guys whose lights got cut off and their water got shut off, and they all moved out of this place and left him there by himself. And no one took responsibility of the cat. And so me and my friend went over and rescued him. And at the time, his name was Xavier. And so I took him home and was cuddling up to him and getting to know him a little bit. And this guy is super doofy. He's a total goofball in every way. And I was this little cat cannot be Xavier. That's too much of a Viking name for someone that is such a doofus. And so I was well, what is similar enough to Xavier that we can sort of morph this name into? So Xavier became X, which became Eggs.
That's a great story. I love it.
Yeah, Eggs is a great name for him.
Do you have any raps about eggs?
I do have a rap about eggs. It's also about mental health and needing a cat to give you an anchor to this world. It's not very politically related.
No, but very needed.
I do have a rap about running for office, but
do you want to lay it down here?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So I'm seeing bat signals up in the Gotham skies. A lot of math niggas talking shit when they names anonymized. But I'm not the type to type and not fuck what you thought online. Got the gun and pen, so I could grasp triggers like Private Ryan. But I prefer being in the government. Make it swing to the left like a conga line as we usher in the forgotten kind. The blacks and the Latinas, the younger kids, and the Wonder Women who be running winning to restructure systems like our justice system. Reproductive issues getting undermined. Might have been under the Reagan administration, never undermined. A lot of relationships between the church and the state, the boss and the labor, the cops and the neighbors, the doctors and laypersons, blacks and the bankers, the gays and the cake bakers, us and the nation. To cauterize it, then to call it fine. It's like calling a broccoli cauliflower, like apples and oranges. Next thing you know, it's a riot outside from New York to New Orleans. But look, bottom line is that bottom up, from coast to coast, it's a lot of us. For 109 ran for offices, we could seize the power and resolve the shit. I was never the ideal candidate, but I'll die before I kneel candidly. So if I'm handing you what was handed me, if you ain't running, is you really standing me?
Love it. That's amazing.
That was awesome.
Thanks.
I think that one of these groups that's trying to get more people to run for office should put you on a commercial.
Hit them up. I'm sure y'all probably are better connected than I. So hit up Run for something or someone and tell them to let me do a little cameo.
We'll try. We'll see what we can do.
Yeah.
Excellent. And if people would like to help out your campaign for your reelection in 2020, is there a good way they can do that?
Yeah. So you can go to mariahforathens.org, find out all about platform and how to donate. You can follow me on social media at Mariah FOR Athens. And yeah, I hope y'all will contribute to the fight.
All right. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I think your story is great and super inspirational. And even though you're half my age, maybe not quite half. I'm selling myself a little bit short there, but I think that is so incredible. And, I really hope that it helps a lot of people see that, in fact, they can run for office too.
Yeah, absolutely. That's my dream.
Thank you for listening to Two Broads Talking Politics, part of the Dimcast Podcast Network. Our theme song is called Are You Listening off of the album Elephant Shaped Trees by the band Immunuri, and we're using it with permission of the band. Our logo and other original artwork is by Matthew Weflin and was created for use by this podcast. You can contact us at twobroadstalkingpolitics@gmail.com or on Twitter or Facebook at twobroadstalk. You can find all of our episodes at twobroadstalkingpolitics.com or anywhere podcasts are found.